Okay, let's have a look. Participants. Let's just wait for Mr. Salpietro. Okay, finally admit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think our special guest already connected. Let's just open his video. I asked him to enable his video. Yes, that's it. That's it. All right, guys, finally, we're live. We're live. Can you talk? I cannot hear you. Are you on mute? Can you please speak? Can you please talk?
Yes.
All right, fabulous. Fabulous. Finally, guys, we're back. We're back, and after some technical difficulties, we're finally able to set up our meeting. And again, just to give you a brief background of what we're going to do here, as not everyone know, but if you're a Bombers fan or you're a Western Bulldog fans, you know that today is the day. And I remember, is that last year when I started my vlog in YouTube, and this guest of mine is also the very special first guest that I have, and I'm so glad that today he was able to grant us again a very precious time of his to do a finals preview of the game. So without any further delay, guys, I want to introduce you back to Mr. Carl Salpietro, who is also my amore. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Maganda. And yeah, it's good to be here. Very excited for the upcoming match, which will start in less than 3 hours from now.
All right, so let's go straight to our question. What is the status of Essendon team in these semi-finals?
Okay, so after the home and away season, which finished last week, Essendon finished in eighth position, which is the last of the finals positions.
Mm-hmm.
And the Western Bulldogs finished in 5th.
Oh.
So this is an elimination final, which means whoever loses today will be out for season 2021. And the winner of today's match will play the loser from last night's match, which was the Brisbane Lions, who played last night.
I see.
So, yeah, so Essendon, I say Essendon because I'm an Essendon supporter. We had 11 wins and 11 losses for the year. And hence that has gotten us into the top 8.
Sure.
So
next question will be, what are the few highlights of Bombers team this 2021 season as far as you can remember? Just a few highlights for you this season.
Some highlights have been the emergence of some of our younger players, in particular a guy called Darcy Parish, who wears the number 3 Guernsey. Now usually he had been playing in the forward line, but because of some injuries, he was brought into the midfield of the ground. And because of that, he's gotten a lot more of the ball and has been given a lot more recognition. There were 3 games in particular where he broke Essendon records by getting the ball 44 occasions on one occasion. And then there were 2 other occasions where he got the ball 42 and 43 against some big teams, against Collingwood, Richmond and Geelong. So Darcy Parish has been a very good player. And also Jake Stringer, who actually used to play for the Western Bulldogs.
Oh, yeah.
He has spent more time in the midfield as well, but he's been kicking a lot of goals as well. So what happens, they will bring Jake Stringer into the midfield to get the ball out of the centre, and then he'll drift forward and kick some goals. And he's done that, I think on 4 occasions, he's kicked 4 goals or more in a match. So he's been good. And I'll just name one more.
Yes, go for it.
Peter Wright, who came from the Gold Coast. Peter Wright, so his nickname is 2 Metre Peter. because he's over 2 meters tall. On one match, he kicked 7 goals, and it was actually against the Western Bulldogs. It was only 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So his emergence as well. So they're 3 players who have really brought Essendon up to the final 8.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
you see the heavy rain on the background. Can you hear?
yeah.
Can you hear some rain noise on on our audio?
Yeah,
Because
it's starting to rain now.
Raining hard. And speaking of rain, have you checked what's the forecast and where's the venue of today's match?
I did check because I heard last night that there was going to be rain in Launceston.
Oh, same. All right.
And yeah, it looks like there'll be rain there in Launceston this afternoon.
And obviously on the game, what will be the effect of this? Obviously, it would be different if it's raining as compared to if it's sunny.
Well, when it rains, it affects the bigger players a lot more because the ball will be harder to mark the ball, to catch the ball. So this will affect the big players. So like Peter Wright, as you mentioned, he kicked 7 goals a few weeks ago. Now, if it's going to rain, he may struggle even to kick 2 goals if it's going to be wet weather. So this will be more beneficial for the smaller players and players who are good at ground level. Yeah. Okay. So there'll be less contested marks taken if it's going to be really wet.
Okay.
And if the wind comes into it as well, it can be hard as well to mark the ball. So, but the conditions are there for both teams, for the Bulldogs and Essendon.
And next question is, what will be the key advantages or strengths of Essendon over the opponent Western Bulldog in this afternoon match?
I believe it'll be through the centre square. Now, Essendon has a player by the name of Sam Draper. He's the ruckman, so he's the biggest guy in the team. So when the umpire throws the ball up, Sam Draper usually gets the ball onto his hands, and he'll knock it to the smaller players, to the midfielders. So Essendon should get more balls out of the centre square. So that's where Essendon have the advantage. Whereas the Bulldogs are better around the ground. They're better at handballing and moving the ball. They're a very quick team. And even 3 weeks ago when we did beat the Western Bulldogs, they got it into their forward line 60 times, whereas Essendon only 39 times. But Essendon won because they were kicking at goal more accurately. So, so I think Bulldogs around the ground will be stronger. Essendon probably in the centre square after each goal kicked. That's where their strength will be.
Consequently, in relation to that question, what will be the Bombers needs to watch out for, and what strategy should they do to incorporate in today's game against Western Bulldogs? So what do they need to do to win?
Well, what the Bombers, Essendon, need to do is get numbers around the ball at all times. Because of the wet weather, like we were talking about before, the ball's going to be on the deck, on the ground a lot. So we need to get numbers to the ball. We've got to handball it out to our running players, which will give the forwards a chance to score goals. So what they need to do is always get numbers around the ball, and they've got to set up, if we do lose the ball, we need our defenders set up in case we do lose the ball so that the Bulldogs don't kick goals. So it's very important that Essendon is organised if we do lose the ball. So not just in attack, but also in defending our goals,
So who do you think are the key players on both teams for today's match? Who are you think the one that will emerge and in terms of the overall game? Is it the forward of this team? Is it the defender of this team? Who do you think are the key players that will stand out for this afternoon's game?
Yeah, good question. I'll start off with the Western Bulldogs. Marcus Bontempelli, who is the captain, he is always going to be the key. Now, like Jake Stringer for Essendon, rather, he can spend time in the forward line and also in the midfield. Now, Essendon need to be prepared for where he is at any given time. But what he has to do, Bontempelli, he needs to be in and around the ball, getting the ball out to his other teammates, but also put pressure on his direct opponent. Now, usually his opponents, if he's in the midfield, his opponents will usually be a bit smaller because he's a very big guy for a midfielder. So what he should do is drift forward, and he's able to take a mark because he'll be much taller than his opponent. So Essendon's got to be wary of that. They've got to be wary of Marcus Bontempelli. And yeah, they've got to look out for, I mean, the Bulldogs need to, it'll be their midfield that will be the key. That is where their strength is. Their defence, it's not their best part of their game. So they've just got to break even with the Essendon forwards. But it'll be the Bulldogs midfield that will win it for the Bulldogs.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned about Essendon. I'll just go quickly through Essendon.
Mm-hmm.
The key, I believe, is Jake Stringer. Because if he's like Bontempelli, if he's in the forward line, they need to get the exact right matchup for him. But when he goes into the midfield, then another player will have to follow him. So he will be the key, but also the midfield again for Essendon. They need to at least break even with the Western Bulldogs because that's where the Bulldogs' strength is. Now, Essendon's strength also is their forward line. They can mix it up with a lot of different players who can kick some goals. So we've got Peter Wright, even some lesser names like Devon Smith and Will Snelling can kick some goals. And another new recruit from West Coast by the name of Waterman. He's got a big left foot. He can kick goals from 50, 55 metres. So if he can kick 2 or 3, that'll go a long way in Essendon winning. With the low scoring, with the weather rather, it may be a lower scoring game. It could be like 10, 12 goals could win the match. Usually you need about 15 goals, 14, 15 to win a game. But in the wet weather, maybe 12 goals will be enough. So, yeah, everyone's got to do their bit, each player in the team.
In terms of the lineup, I'm pretty sure the AFL already released the lineup. Is there any particular injury or last minute pull out from each team, or the original lineup still holds?
There was no change for the Western Bulldogs.
Okay.
Now for Essendon, one of our running defenders by the name of Nick Hines, he was told that he couldn't play because he visited a COVID site in Altona. He was picking up some
That's not good.
Groceries at Coles or Woolies. I think it was Coles. And yeah, he was only in there for 3 minutes and he can't play. He's not allowed to play, even though he tested negative.
Speaking of, sorry to interrupt. Speaking of COVID, what am I about to say? There will be audience in Tasmania, or was it announced?
Yes, that's a limit. Yeah, there's a cap of 10,000 people.
All right, so we're expecting.
10,000 there.
So we can see spectators there. We can see spectators there.
And in last night's match, which was Sydney and GWS, they had around 10,000. So I assume there are more Essendon supporters in Tasmania than the other two teams. So there'll definitely be 10,000.
Yeah, it's just very difficult at the moment. And I hadn't checked, but I think they hadn't made up their mind yet where the grand finals will be held. Have they already made an announcement regarding the finals venue?
No, it's not a definite thing, but it looks like it's going to be in Perth at this stage. Now, as you would be aware, what was I saying? There've been some COVID cases there in Perth. There were those truck drivers that entered Perth. So it depends on that investigation, whether the grand final is in Perth, or it could even be in Adelaide if Port Adelaide make the grand final. So
sure.
Yeah, well, it's too early to say at this stage.
Sure.
Yep.
And our final question will be, what's your fearless forecast for AFL in the remaining games for the season? Obviously, assuming if Bombers win this round, or if they didn't win, who do you think will make it as the main champion? Because I remember when we did the preview of last year, who was your main forecast as the winner?
From the one we did I think it was in March, the pre-season, I said Port would make the final against Brisbane. That was what I said. I'm still confident with Port Adelaide.
As the main winner.
That's if the grand final's in Adelaide. Now, if the grand final's in Perth, if it's in Perth, I think it'll be a Melbourne v Port Adelaide grand final. I'm still undecided who will win if it's in Perth. It could be a 50-50, either Melbourne or Port Adelaide. But if it's in Adelaide, I think Port will be the favourite to win. Yeah. So they're the two that I'm looking at. Brisbane, I did say they would come runner-up. I'm not sure if that'll happen now, since they lost last night. So they would have to win three matches.
It's just very bizarre. There are teams that are only good on their home ground, like Brisbane Lions last year, right? They're the finalists, right? Grand finalists, mainly because most of the games are being played there. And now it's happening again with Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
If it's in their ground, they win a lot. But if they go interstate,
well, that's why. I mean, we still don't know where the grand final will be. I mean, we know that it won't be in Melbourne. It looks like it'll be Perth or Adelaide.
Yeah, because
which is why I'm tipping Port if it's in Adelaide.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't agree more, because in my opinion, if it's a neutral ground, meaning not the home ground, I reckon the Victorian players are more dominant other than the other teams. I don't know why. Mainly because I don't know. Just looking back at the record of last year as well, when Richmond won, on other ground, and let's see. So
I think Melbourne, they might play better at the ground in Perth, because it's a skinny ground, which is good for Melbourne because they're a good defensive team. And if you defend well, it's easy to defend if the ground is skinnier, because then you don't have. It's easier to pick up your opponents. So I mean, probably Melbourne would be favourite if it's in Perth. But that's more 50-50.
Thank you so much for joining me, and that's so far a brief preview of today's match. Good luck on Essendon Bombers, and if we have Western Bulldogs supporters here, I wish you luck as well. I'm neutral, so let's sit back and relax.
Forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. We haven't won a finals match since 2004. It's been 17 years, so today it could be the day that we win our first final in a long time. So
yeah, I reckon just like, you know, it will be good this season because, you know, with this pandemic also affecting the AFL games, I reckon anything can happen. Anyone can still win. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Carl South.
thank you,
Again,
Janet.
gracing my YouTube channel. Please don't forget to follow and subscribe, guys, to my YouTube channel. If you had please comment down below if you want other topics that me and Carl would want to discuss aside from footy. But if you still want us to do another preview of the other games, please let us know. And I hope you take care, stay safe. Goodbye, everyone. Until next time.
Bye,
See
bye
you.
everyone.